The Villani were dying. Not quickly, not all at once, but slowly, like a flower wilting under a sun that burned too hot. Princess Yuna stood at the window of her father's council chamber and watched the refugee ships descend from the sky. Another colony lost. Another million of her people homeless. She was tall and slender, with silver skin that glowed faintly in the dim light. Her eyes were large and luminous, the color of pale moonlight. She was beautiful by the standards of any species, but beauty meant nothing when your civilization was crumbling. The Keth had come for her people 3 generations ago. They were conquerors, slavers, destroyers of worlds. The Villani had no army. They were scholars and healers, diplomats and artists. They had believed that kindness and wisdom would protect them. They had been wrong. Now only 3 colony worlds remained. The Keth had sent their final message yesterday. Surrender completely or be destroyed. They had 1 galactic cycle to decide. 30 days to choose between slavery and death. Yuna's father, High Counselor Taiwan, sat at the long table with the other leaders of their people. His face was tired and old. He had aged 20 years in the last 5. The weight of watching his civilization die was crushing him slowly. "We have no options," said one counselor. "We must surrender. At least our people will live." "As slaves," another replied bitterly, "working in Keth mines until we die. That is not living." Yuna turned from the window. "There is one option we have not tried." The council looked at her. Her father frowned. "Yuna, we have discussed this. The Terran coalition will not help us. They do not involve themselves in foreign wars. They do not involve themselves without reason," Yuna corrected. "But there are ways to give them reason." She had studied humans for years. They were a strange species, young compared to most spacefaring races. They were small and soft, with no claws or fangs or natural armor. Yet somehow they had survived. More than survived. They had spread across hundreds of worlds. Other species left them alone, and Yuna had always wondered why. "I will go to Meridian Station," she said. "I will speak with their ambassador." "And say what?" her father asked. "We have nothing to offer them. Our technology is inferior to theirs. Our worlds are poor. What could we possibly give them that would make them fight the Keth for us?" Yuna met her father's eyes. "Me." The council chamber went silent. "In our culture," Yuna continued, "marriage between houses creates unbreakable bonds. We become one family. I have studied human customs. They have similar traditions. If I marry a human of sufficient status, the Terran coalition becomes obligated to protect us. We become their family." Her father stood slowly. "You would sacrifice yourself? Marry an alien, a creature you do not know, to save us?" "I would do far more than that to save our people, father." 2 weeks later, Yuna stood in the cold metal corridors of Meridian Station. It was a trading hub, neutral ground, where species from across the galaxy came to do business. The air smelled strange, recycled, and artificial. She missed the sweet wind of Ashra, her homeworld, but she pushed that thought away. The human embassy was small and unremarkable. A young woman at the front desk smiled at her and asked her to wait. Yuna sat in a simple chair and tried to calm her racing heart. When Ambassador Dohon finally received her, she was surprised. She had expected someone impressive, someone powerful looking. Instead, she found a quiet man of average height, with dark hair going gray at the temples and eyes that looked tired. He wore simple clothes. He had no decorations or symbols of rank. "Princess Yuna," he said, gesturing to a chair across from his desk. "Please, sit. I am sorry for your people's troubles. How can I help you?" She sat and studied him. His face was kind but guarded. There were lines around his eyes, the marks of someone who had seen difficult things. I need the Terran Coalition to protect my people, she said directly. The Keth will destroy us within 30 days. Dohan nodded slowly. I know. I wish I could help. But the Coalition does not enter foreign conflicts without formal alliance. Treaties take years to negotiate. You do not have years. No, Yuna agreed. I do not. That is why I am proposing something different. She explained her plan. A marriage bond. Immediate alliance through personal union. She watched his face as she spoke, looking for disgust or amusement, but found neither. He listened carefully, his expression thoughtful. When she finished, he was silent for a long moment. You would marry a stranger, he said slowly. Someone you do not know. Someone not of your species. To save your people. Yes, that is a heavy sacrifice. Yuna lifted her chin. My people are worth any sacrifice. Darwin studied her. Then, to her surprise, he smiled. It was a sad smile, small and tired. I was a soldier once, he said quietly. I fought in wars that took everything from me. I became a diplomat because I thought I could do more good with words than weapons. I was wrong about many things, but not about that. He stood and walked to the window, looking out at the stars. I cannot watch another civilization burn, he said. Not when I have the power to help. I will marry you, princess. And the Terran Coalition will come. The wedding was small and quiet. There were no celebrations, no feasts. Yuna wore a simple white dress. Dohan wore his diplomatic uniform. They exchanged vows in a bare room with only a few witnesses. When it was done, Yuna looked at her new husband. He was not handsome by any standard. He was not impressive or powerful looking. He was just a tired man with kind eyes. She wondered what she had truly gained. The Terrans were coming. Yes, but what could they really do? Humans were soft creatures, fragile compared to the Keth. Their small fleet could not possibly stand against the Dominion's war machine. She had gambled everything on this marriage. On this quiet, unremarkable man. She prayed she had not made a terrible mistake. Ashura was beautiful. Even Dawn, who had seen 100 worlds, admitted that. The cities were made of crystal that caught the light of the twin suns and scattered rainbows across every surface. The air was sweet and clean. Flowers bloomed everywhere, filling the streets with color and perfume. But the beauty could not hide the fear. Yuna saw it in the eyes of her people as she walked through the capital with her human husband. They looked at Dohan with polite curiosity, but underneath was doubt. This small, soft creature was supposed to save them? This was their great hope? Her father received them in the palace. High Counselor Taiwan was gracious, as protocol demanded, but Yuna could see his disappointment. He had expected warriors. Instead, he got one quiet man who spoke softly and smiled rarely. The Terran fleet will arrive within the week, Dohan told him. Admiral Sora commands them. She is capable. How many ships? Taiwan asked. 12. The silence that followed was painful. 12 ships. The Keth had thousands. Yuna's sister Jiwoo laughed bitterly. She was younger than Yuna, fiercer, one of the few Vellani who had trained in combat. She had argued against the marriage from the beginning. 12 ships, Jiwoo said. Against the Dominion. You have killed us all, sister. You married us to prey animals, and now we will die together. Doan said nothing. He simply looked at Jiwoo with those tired eyes, then turned back to Taiwan. I would like to study your tactical records, he said. Everything you have on the Keth, their strategies, their formations, their commanders. Everything. Why? Taiwan asked. What good will studying do? That is how humans fight, Dohon replied. We learn first. Then we act. The days that followed were strange for Yuna. She had expected her husband to take charge, to command meetings and make speeches. Instead, he did nothing visible at all. He spent his days reading, watching, asking questions. He wandered through the city like a tourist, observing everything with quiet attention. At night, he barely slept. Yuna would wake to find his side of the bed empty and discover him in his study, surrounded by holographic displays showing Keth battle formations and tactical analyses. He would nod at her and return to his work without a word. Jiwoo's contempt grew daily. She made no effort to hide it. "Your husband is useless," she told Yuna one morning. "The Keth scout ships were detected yesterday at the edge of our system. In days, they will be here. And what does your great human alliance do? Nothing. He reads books while we prepare to die." Yuna had no answer. She was beginning to wonder the same thing. One evening, she found Doan in the garden, sitting on a bench beneath a flowering tree. The twin moons were rising, painting the sky in shades of purple and gold. He looked peaceful but sad. She sat beside him. "May I ask you something?" "Of course. What are you doing?" "My sister thinks you are weak. My father thinks he made a mistake accepting your help. I do not know what to think. You do not act like a man who came to fight a war." Doan was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Do you know how humans became a spacefaring species?" "No. We nearly destroyed ourselves first. Many times. We are violent creatures, princess. We have fought more wars among ourselves than most species fight in their entire history. We developed weapons that could burn whole continents. We used them. Millions died." He looked up at the moons. "Eventually, we learned. We learned to control ourselves, to channel our nature into other things. We became explorers, traders, diplomats. But the violence never went away. We just learned to hide it, to save it for when it was truly needed." Yuna studied his face. "You are saying humans are dangerous. I am saying we are more dangerous than anyone knows. And I am saying that before we fight, we prepare. We learn everything about our enemy, their strengths, their weaknesses, their fears. Then, when we finally act..." He trailed off. His eyes had gone distant, lost in some memory she could not see. "You were a soldier," she said. "You told me that when we met. What happened to you?" For a long moment, he did not answer. Then, slowly, he unbuttoned his collar and turned. Yuna gasped. His back was covered in scars, dozens of them, layered over each other like a terrible map of pain. "Carthage Station," he said quietly. "The bloodiest battle in human history. 800,000 people died in 6 hours. I was there. I survived. Sometimes I wish I had not." He buttoned his collar again and faced her. "I became a diplomat because I was tired of killing. But the skills remain. The knowledge remains. When the time comes, I will use them. But not before I am ready. Not before I understand exactly how to end this with the least possible death." Yuna did not know what to say. She had married this man thinking he was a political tool, a key to unlock Terran protection. She had never imagined what might lie beneath his quiet surface. "You carry much pain," she finally said. "Yes, the pain can be useful. It reminds us what we are fighting against, what we are trying to prevent for others." The Terran fleet arrived the next day. 12 ships, small and unremarkable compared to the massive Keth warships. Admiral Sora came to the palace to meet with the council. She was a small woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. She deferred to Dohan in a way that confused everyone. Why would an admiral take orders from a diplomat? That same night, the Keth scout fleet entered Volani space. 50 warships, moving toward the outer colony of Velen Prime. The colony sent desperate messages begging for evacuation. Taiwan demanded action. The Terran ships must intercept the Keth. They must protect the colony. Dohan listened calmly, then shook his head. Let them come deeper, he said. Let them think they are hunting. I want to see how they move. I want to understand them completely. Jiwoo exploded with rage. People will die while you watch and study. What kind of ally are you? Doan met her eyes. For the first time, Yuna saw something cold in his gaze. Something hard and sharp, like a blade hidden beneath cloth. The kind that wins, he said. Watch, Commander. Learn. This is how humans make war. The Keth fleet moved through Vellani space like a pack of hungry wolves. 50 warships, each one bristling with weapons, each one carrying hundreds of soldiers hungry for conquest. They had done this 1,000 times before. Find the weak. Crush them. Take everything. The Vellani colony of Vellum Prime hung in space before them, beautiful and defenseless. Evacuation ships were launching in panic, fleeing like frightened birds. The Keth commander laughed at the sight. This would be easy. This would be fun. He did not see the 12 Terran ships waiting in the shadow of the planet's moon. He did not know they were there at all. In the command center on Ashura, Yuna watched the tactical display with growing terror. The Keth fleet was almost in range of the colony. Thousands of her people were still on the surface, waiting for evacuation ships that would never arrive in time. We must do something, Taiwan said. His voice was tight with fear. Ambassador, please. Give the order to attack. Damhan stood before the display, hands clasped behind his back. He watched the Keth ships move with the patience of a man who had all the time in the world. Not yet, he said. People are dying. Not yet, Doan repeated. His voice was calm, almost gentle. Trust me, counselor. Just a little longer. Jiwoo stood nearby, her fists clenched. She wanted to strike him, to force him to act. But something in his stillness held her back. Something in those tired eyes had changed. The quiet diplomat was gone. Someone else was looking out through that gaze now. On the tactical display, the Keth fleet reached optimal attack position. They spread into their standard formation, preparing to bombard the colony. Their commander sent a message demanding immediate surrender. Doan smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. Now, he said. He touched a control on the display. Admiral Sora, execute Harbinger Protocol. What happened next, Yuna would remember for the rest of her life. The 12 Terran ships emerged from behind the moon. But they were no longer the small, unremarkable vessels that had arrived days ago. They had changed. Panels slid back to reveal hidden weapon systems. Deployment bays opened, releasing hundreds of small objects that spread through space. Like a swarm of metal insects, the Keth commander barely had time to react. One moment, he was preparing for an easy victory. The next, his fleet was under attack from every direction. The Terran ships did not fight like any enemy the Keth had ever faced. They did not form lines and exchange fire. They struck and vanished, appeared and disappeared, always moving, never standing still. The drone swarms targeted engines and weapons with impossible precision. Electronic warfare systems scrambled Keth communications, turning their coordinated fleet into confused, isolated ships. Yuna watched in shock as the Keth formation collapsed. Ships collided with each other. Weapons fired wildly, sometimes hitting their own allies. Panic spread through the enemy fleet like fire through dry grass. In 11 minutes, it was over. 30 Keth ships destroyed. 15 disabled. 5 fled into deep space. The Terran fleet had lost nothing. Not one ship. Not one drone. The command center was silent. Everyone stared at the display, trying to understand what they had just witnessed. Jiwoo spoke first. Her voice was barely a whisper. What? What was that? Dohan turned to face her. His expression was calm, but there was something terrible in his eyes now. Something old and cold and patient. That was a warning, he said. The Keth will send more ships. Many more. When they do, they will find us waiting. Later that night, Una found her husband alone in his study. He was sitting in the dark, staring at nothing. She approached slowly, unsure of what she would find. Dawn? He looked up. The coldness was gone from his eyes. He just looked tired again, tired and sad. Princess. You should be sleeping. So should you. She sat across from him. Will you tell me the truth now? Who are you really? What are humans really? He was quiet for a long moment. Then he began to speak. Humans are afraid, he said. We have always been afraid. We were small and weak on our home planet, surrounded by creatures that could kill us easily. We had no claws, no fangs, no armor. So we learned to use our minds instead. We learned to make tools, weapons. We learned to hunt creatures 10 times our size. We learned to survive. He stood and walked to the window, looking out at the stars. But we were too good at it. We became the most dangerous creatures on our world. We killed everything that threatened us, and then we started killing each other. War after war after war. We developed weapons that could end all life on our planet. We came close to using them many times. He turned to face her. Eventually, we learned to control ourselves. We created laws, institutions, treaties. We buried our violence deep down, locked it away. We became explorers and traders and diplomats. We convinced the galaxy that we were harmless. But you are not harmless. No, we are the most dangerous species in known space. We simply choose not to show it. Most of the time. Una stood and approached him. And you? What are you? I am what happens when humans decide something is worth fighting for. I am a weapon that learned to feel. I am a monster who chose to be kind. But make no mistake, princess. When I fight to win. Whatever the cost. Whatever it takes. She reached out and took his hand. It was warm and calloused and trembling slightly. You are no monster, she said softly. Monsters do not weep for their enemies. He looked at her with something like wonder. You are not afraid of me? I was. Now I understand. You carry violence inside you like a disease, but you choose every day not to spread it. That is not weakness. That is the greatest strength I have ever seen. For the first time since they met, Dohan smiled. A real smile, small but genuine. The Keth will return, he said. Many more of them. This was just the beginning. I know. But now I also know what we have to fight them. She squeezed his hand. We have humanity. The message reached Keth High Command like a thunderbolt. 50 warships lost. 50 to 12 enemy vessels. It was impossible. It was humiliating. It was unacceptable. Warlord Grath sat on his throne of bone and listened to the report with growing rage. He was the supreme military commander of the Keth Dominion, conqueror of 11 species, destroyer of 100 worlds. He had never lost a campaign. He had never failed. And now these humans, these soft little creatures, had made fools of his fleet. Who commands them? He demanded. A single human, my lord. A diplomat named Doan. Grath laughed, but there was no humor in it. A diplomat defeated 50 warships? Then our commanders were weak. Send a proper fleet. 2,000 ships. I will lead them myself. His advisors tried to caution him. 2,000 ships was a massive commitment. What if other enemies saw weakness and attacked? But Grath silenced them with a look. The galaxy is watching, he said. They are watching to see what happens when someone defies the Dominion. If we show weakness now, we show weakness forever. No, we will crush these humans. We will enslave the Villani. And we will make such an example of them that no one will ever dare challenge us again. On Ashra, Una received the news with her husband at her side. 2,000 Keth warships. The largest fleet the Dominion had ever assembled against a single enemy. Even with Terran reinforcements, they would be vastly outnumbered. How many ships can the coalition send? Taiwan asked. Doan checked his reports. 140. That is everything available in this sector. 140 against 2,000, Jiwoo said. Those are impossible odds. Difficult odds, Dohun corrected. Not impossible. Humans have faced worse. We have won. The Terran reinforcements arrived over the following days. 140 ships in total, along with Admiral Sora and her full command staff. They gathered in orbit around Ashra, a thin line of metal between the Vellani homeworld and approaching Doom.Duhun changed during those days. The quiet diplomat disappeared completely. In his place was something else, something harder and sharper. He barely slept. He barely ate. He spent every moment in the command center, planning, adjusting, preparing. The Vellani commanders who worked with him were amazed. They had never seen anyone think so many moves ahead. No one seemed to know what the Keth would do before they did it. He predicted their formations, their tactics, their psychology. We will not meet them in open battle, he told the War Council. That is what they want. That is where their numbers matter. That is where their numbers matter. Instead, we will bleed them. We will make them chase shadows. We will break their morale before we break their ships. He divided the fleet into small hunting packs. He seeded asteroid fields with mines. He set up false signals to confuse Keth sensors. He prepared ambush points and escape routes and backup plans for every backup plan. Jiwoo worked alongside him, commanding the few Vellani defense ships they had. She had hated him once. Now she watched him with something like awe. You think of everything, she said one night, studying his plans. I think of what can go wrong, he replied. That is different. You have done this before. Commanded battles like this. Yes, his voice was flat. Many times. I hoped I would never do it again. The Keth fleet entered Vellani space 3 weeks later. 2,000 warships, led by the massive command vessel of Warlord Grath himself. They came expecting easy prey. They found something else entirely. The Terran hunting packs struck first. Small groups of ships that appeared from nowhere, destroyed a supply vessel or two, then vanished before the Keth could respond. At first, Grath ignored them. Gnats, he called them. Annoying but harmless dot, but the gnats kept biting. Supply convoys disappeared. Scout ships never returned. Soldiers began to whisper that the humans were ghosts, that they could appear and disappear at will. Morale crumbled slowly, day by day. Grath grew frustrated. He ordered his fleet to advance faster, to catch the enemy and crush them in open battle. But every time he pushed forward, he lost more ships. The asteroid fields were deadly. The false signals led his squadrons into traps. His communications were scrambled by electronic warfare. In the command center on Ashra, Una watched the Keth fleet bleed. A ship here, a convoy there. Nothing decisive, but constant, endless. Death by 1,000 cuts. You are torturing them, she said to Doan. I am weakening them, he replied. Every ship they lose is one less ship in the final battle. Every soldier who deserts is one less soldier trying to kill your people. Is this how humans always fight? With tricks and shadows? We fight however we must. Honor is a luxury for those who can afford it. Your people cannot afford it. Neither can mine. She saw the weight of it on him. Every casualty report, even Keth casualties, seemed to add another stone to the burden he carried. He did not enjoy this. He did not take pleasure in the killing. But he did it anyway, because it was necessary. One night, Ji-woo brought a tactical decision to him. They had located a Keth hospital ship, separated from the main fleet. An easy target. Destroying it would cripple Keth morale even further. Doan looked at the report. Then he shook his head. No. It is a perfect opportunity. It is a hospital ship. It carries wounded soldiers, not warriors. We do not attack medical vessels. They would attack ours. Yes, they would. That is why we must not become them. We fight for something, Commander. If we abandon what we fight for, then we have already lost, even if we win. Ji-woo stared at him. Then, slowly, she nodded. Something changed in her eyes. Something like respect. Warlord Grath's patience finally broke. He sent a transmission to Ashra, broadcast across the entire system. His face was twisted with rage. Human. Face me. Stop hiding in shadows like a coward. I challenge you to battle, warrior to warrior, fleet to fleet. Meet me at Ashra, and we will end this like soldiers. Dohan watched the transmission calmly. When it ended, he smiled that cold, terrible smile. He has made a mistake, he said. He is angry. Angry enemies make mistakes. He turned to Admiral Sora. Recall all hunting packs. Consolidate the fleet at Ashra. Let him come to us. And then? Sora asked. Doan's eyes were hard as stone. Then we show him what humans truly are. The Battle of Ashra began at dawn. 2,000 Keth warships descended on the Volani homeworld like a storm of metal and fire. Warlord Grath stood on the bridge of his command vessel, watching the planet grow larger in his view screen. Behind the thin Terran defensive line, he could see the crystal cities sparkling in the sunlight. Soon, they would burn. Today, he announced to his fleet, we remind the galaxy why they fear us. Today, we break humanity's pride. Today, we feast on Volani screams. His soldiers roared their approval. On the surface of Ashra, Dohan stood in the command center with Yuna at his side. The tactical display showed the massive Keth fleet approaching. 140 Terran ships faced them, a thin line of resistance against overwhelming force. But Dohan was smiling. They came exactly where we wanted them, he said. Between the twin moons. Into the killing field. He touched a control. Across the system, hidden weapons platforms activated. Thousands of mines drifted into position. FDL jamming fields powered up, trapping the Keth fleet in normal space. And from the darkness beyond the moons, 300 additional Terran warships emerged. Reinforcements that had waited in silence for this moment. The Keth fleet suddenly found itself surrounded. Doan opened a communication channel to Grath's ship. His voice was calm and clear. Warlord Grath, I am Ambassador Doan of the Terran Coalition. I give you one chance to withdraw. One chance to save your soldiers. Take it. Leave this system. Never return. Grath's response was to execute a Volani prisoner on the open channel. A young woman, barely more than a child. He laughed as she died. That is my answer, human. Come and stop me if you can. Dohan's face did not change. But something in his eyes went dark, went cold, went beyond mercy. Admiral Sora, he said quietly. No quarter. The Battle of Ashra was not a battle. It was extermination. The Terran fleet struck with terrible precision. Every ship knew its target. Every weapon found its mark. The Keth tried to fight back, tried to form defensive lines, but the humans were everywhere at once. Coordinated by a battle net that linked every vessel together, they moved like one creature with 400 bodies. Ships died by the hundreds. Keth escape pods were tractored in and secured, their crews taken prisoner rather than killed. Even in his fury, Dohan would not become what he fought against. But for the warships themselves, there was no mercy. Grath watched his fleet crumble around him. For the first time in his life, he felt fear. How? He whispered. How are they doing this? His advisors had no answers. The humans fought like nothing they had ever seen. Like predators hunting prey. Like monsters wearing the faces of soft, gentle creatures. The battle reached the surface when Keth landing craft broke through the orbital defenses. Terran Marines deployed to meet them, armored figures that moved with inhuman speed and precision. Una watched through the command center's cameras as the ground battle unfolded. She had thought the space battle was terrifying. This was worse. The Terran Marines did not fight like soldiers. They fought like something primal, something ancient, something that had learned to kill before it had learned to speak. The Keth warriors were larger, stronger, bred for combat. It did not matter. They fell in waves. Then the Keth breached the command center itself. The wall exploded inward. Keth soldiers poured through the gap, weapons firing. Valani's staff screamed and ran. Una reached for a sidearm she did not have. Dohan moved. Una had never seen a human fight. She had never understood what they truly were. Now she saw it. Now she understood. Dohan crossed the room like flowing water, like death given form. He took a weapon from the first Keth to reach him and killed that soldier with it in the same motion. The second Keth died before it knew it was under attack. The third fired its weapon, but Dohan was already somewhere else, already behind it, already ending its life. 3 Keth warriors, dead in seconds. Debris fell from the damaged ceiling. Dohan threw himself over Una, shielding her with his body. Metal and stone struck his back. He grunted in pain but did not let go. When the dust settled, he helped her up. His face was bleeding. His arm hung at a strange angle, but his eyes were clear and calm. Are you hurt? He asked. No. Dohan, your arm. Later. We have a battle to finish. In orbit, Warlord Grath made his final gamble. He challenged Dohan to single combat, transmitted across the entire system. Warrior to warrior. If Dohan won, the Keth would withdraw. If Grath won, Ashra would surrender. It was a trap, of course. Grath was larger, stronger, bred for violence. He expected to crush the soft human easily. But Dohan accepted anyway. They met in the cargo bay of Grath's crippled flagship. The duel was broadcast across the system, across the galaxy. Everyone watched. Everyone would remember. Grath attacked with brutal force. His blows could shatter stone, could crush metal. Dohan should have died in the first exchange. But Dohan was human. He took the punishment. He bled, bones cracked, flesh tore. But he did not fall. He studied Grath's movements, learned his patterns, found his weaknesses. And then, slowly, he began to fight back. The duel lasted 7 minutes. 7 minutes of blood and pain and impossible endurance. At the end, Grath lay broken on the deck, his massive body twisted, his pride destroyed. Where are you? He gasped. Dohan stood over him, barely able to remain upright. Blood dripped from a dozen wounds. His breath came in ragged gasps. But his voice was steady. We are what happens when you threaten what we love. We are the soft creatures who learn to break worlds. We are humanity. And this system is under our protection. He turned and limped away. Behind him, Keth soldiers lowered their weapons. The war was over. 1 year later, Una walked through the gardens of the rebuilt palace. The crystal spires of the capital city gleamed in the sunlight. Children played in the streets. Laughter echoed where screams had once filled the air. The Keth Dominion had collapsed within months of the battle. Word spread across the galaxy. The Valani were under human protection. No one dared test that claim. She found Dohan in the garden, teaching a group of Valani children. He was reading them poetry, human poetry, about love and loss and hope. The children listened with wide eyes. Jiwoo stood beside Yuna, watching. "I thought he was weak," Jiwoo admitted. "When he first came." Yuna smiled. "So did I. What changed? I saw what he was willing to become to protect us. I saw the monster he could be. And then I saw him choose, every single day, not to be that monster. I saw him weep for enemies he had killed. I saw him refuse to attack a hospital ship. I saw him shield me with his body when the ceiling fell." She placed her hand on her stomach, where new life grew. Human and Vellani intertwined. "That is not weakness, sister. That is the hardest kind of strength." In the garden, a child asked Dohon why humans fought so hard. He knelt to her level and answered gently, "Because we know what it is to lose everything. Because we know what darkness feels like. And we decided, long ago, that we would stand between that darkness and anyone who needed protection. Not because we are strong. Because we remember being weak." The child nodded and hugged him. Dohon smiled, a real smile, and hugged her back. Yuna watched, tears in her eyes. The galaxy feared humanity's wrath. They feared the violence, the fury, the terrible efficiency of human war. But Yuna knew the truth. It was not the fury that made humans special. It was what lay beneath the fury. The capacity for love so deep that it could drive a soft creature to become a god of war. The gentleness that survived even the darkest battles. The choice made again and again, to protect rather than destroy. She had married a human to save her people. She had beheld his divine fury in battle. And now, she understood. The fury was never the point. The love was always the point. The love would always be the point.